Arizona, but we'll see.
Man.
All right, so I wanted to hit you guys with this because I was just thinking about this, the kind of run and the turnaround that this team's been the undertaking over the last few years. It's obviously crazy from what happened from the end of Doug to where we are now, but generally, if you take it back to even the end of Chip, you go back to that last season when he was here. He was here 13, 14, 15. 15 was the year that he lost, that Howie Roseman lost power. And Chip was elevated to have the sort of dual roles. Since then, once Chip got exited, Howie came back. They've won a Super Bowl. They've been to a Super Bowl, could potentially have two. They've been to the playoffs in 18 where they won a playoff game, 19 and 21. All since that season happened. It's been an amazing turnaround, and that's under two different coaches, by the way, and two different quarterbacks. Actually, three different quarterbacks. If you go Wentz, Foles, and then Hurts. So, Derek, I'll start with you on this one. Just the turnaround that this guy's made. I mean, I don't remember we ever see a guy in the front office get demoted, but not get canned, and then promoted back to his position, and then comes back with a vengeance.
I'm glad you put it that way because, first of all, let's start at the top. Kudos to Jeffrey Lurie for not buckling to outside media pressure and fan base pressure, because it was definitely a love-hate, in a lot of cases more hate affair with Howie Roseman and his fan base and the media here in Philadelphia. If you look at before they got to that Super Bowl, a lot of his moves did not pan out. They're very inconsistent at best. And, a lot of GMs don't survive that. And then to get embarrassed, his right-hand man embarrasses him and gives this new wonder boy coach carte blanche to make his decisions about who's where and who does what. And we don't need him to do this, that, and the other. I mean, that was a humbling moment for Howie in his tenure. And then to come out of that and for Howie to step in the podium, I'll never forget that. He stepped at the podium after Chip was gone and talked about it. And he said, this was a humbling experience. And I realized I have some things to learn. He said all the right things in front of the camera. And obviously he's learned his lesson well, because when he came out of that immediately, there still has some issues in terms of consistency in the draft. So it wasn't really until 2021 when his drafts really started to consistently pan out. You look at the last two drafts they've had and how consistent those drafts have been and the products they've gotten out of those drafts. And how he talked about how I have to listen to the people around me better. That's hard. That's hard for a GM to admit, So Jeffrey Lurie, kudos to you for not buckling and making move. We see it happen all the time. Teams don't get the success they're hoping for, and all of a sudden the GM is the one that gets the trap door. Jeffrey didn't do that to Howie. He gave him power. He demoted him, put him back in power, and since then has given him an even bigger title. And look at how it's worked out for him since then. Mm-hmm. And kudos to Howie for not wanting to leave unfinished business. He could have said, you know what, I'm tired of this circus and go somewhere else,
right?
As well,
Yeah.
So
it's
it
very
worked out.
Unique on both parties. Really,
yes. It worked out like a perfect storm for him. But you know what? No matter how old you are, you learn. You continuously learn. We always talk about a closed mouth don't get fed, but I also like to add in a closed mind never fully matures.
Yep.
Okay.
And,
you look at what happened to the dude in New York who finally got fired.
Mm-hmm.
He did it his way the whole time. Didn't work out. Didn't bring the Giants anything.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone now, finally. Howie has evolved as a person, as an executive of one of the most elite franchises in all of pro sports. And look at the dividends he's gotten from that. So kudos to a lot of parties involved for staying the course, overcoming the storm, and now on the other side of that storm, it's been nothing but sunshine the last couple of years.
Yeah, it sure has. What are your thoughts, Barry, when it comes to this?
I'm thinking this. You look at what this organization has done as far as from a draft standpoint. I wanted to run them out of the building when they drafted Jalen Hurts, but they didn't listen to us.
Yep.
They stood by what their office were doing. What their scouting, we're bringing them. You look at how they picked up another center in the second round. I'm like, what? They go get a hurt Dickerson in the second round. I'm like, huh? What are we doing?
Mhm.
But they stuck by their guns. And it's working for them, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Their advanced scouting is helping them make some major decisions. They picked our franchise quarterback up.
Mm-hmm.
They picked up a Pro Bowl left guard. I mean, so whatever they're doing it right, and it's good that they don't listen to us sometimes. You know, I mean, they made their bed with Jalen Reagor, and they're living in it. They're dwelling in it,
Yeah.
and it'll be a mark on his draft prowess. Donnell Pumphrey will be a mark on their draft prowess. But I mean, for the most part, they've done a great job of how they've handled the draft from this point on.
Right.
Monte Smith, their first rounders last couple months. I mean, the last couple of years have been good.
Mm-hmm.
Davis, still going to show that he can improve and be a better player. I mean, his jump from this year to next year should be
big,
off the charts.
Yeah.
It better be off the charts.
I agree. Like we're all kind of patient there with that.
Right.
One. We're all kind of like, all right, get your feet wet, Bob. But because let's face it, at least a couple of these guys, Sue, Joseph, Cox, Hargrave, are not going to be here. Maybe
Right.
all, or at least a couple. So guess what, man? Gloves are off. Gloves are off, dude. Jump in.
Big Jordan better come and be what we thinking he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in all things being equal, man, I think Howie's done a great job in the draft, but an even better job in free agency, in patching up. His patchwork has been impeccable on this team.
Right.
He's done a great job patchwork in the secondary.
Yeah.
Linebacker, D-line, receiver. Great job.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're saying that, I like what he's done.
I give him a lot of credit that he didn't just mope, he didn't just think I'm still going to collect my big check. He made it a point to visit other sports general managers and presidents and see how they do things.
Right.
And he met with, people in business and CEOs to try to learn how to be a better communicator. So that, and I don't know how much of that was Jeffrey Lurie saying, hey, you need to do this. I don't care how you got there.
Have you ever talked to him before?
Howie? Yeah.
I've not as much as D Gun though, but I've had chances to sit down and talk to Howie and really chop it up with him.
Yeah,
he's actually a good dude. He's actually a good dude. He's not a BSer.
Yeah.
He's always trying to learn. You can tell when he's talking to you. He's not just talking to you just to BS you. He's trying to learn. He's trying to learn from you. He's trying to see what you know.
Yeah.
He just doesn't have idle conversation with you. My conversations with him have been, what do I think of this? How did this happen? Or it's me telling him he did a great job of this, and he'll tell me this is why he did this. What do you know? What are your views on that?
Right.
Every time I've talked to him, it's been a personal conversation, but it's been a conversation in which he's trying to learn as much as he can about how he's doing, number one, but what do I think of the direction they're doing, and is everything going to what I thought it was going to be.
I talked to him at the combine after they won it. After they beat New England, I talked to him at the combine for a little bit, and he was, naturally he was feeling great about everything that went because this was just off of it. So, but he was also very humble. Like, hey man, look, we got a lot of decisions to make this offseason, and it wasn't just hey, screw everybody. I told you so.
Oh no, I never got that from him either.
Yeah, like comeback tour or whatever. He was more or less like, hey man, we got there. We got to figure out a way to maintain this, and there's a lot of work to be done. And I thought it was really refreshing when I talked to him, and that was again where he could have really been like, chesty, like look at me, but he wasn't like that.
Right.
A lot of people will never get to know that Howie's actually a funny character when you sit down away from him from the microphones. Now, when he tries to be funny on camera, you sit there going, "Okay, stop cracking jokes, Howie. Stop trying to crack jokes." But get him away from the microphone in his element. When it's just two boys sitting there chopping it up, he's actually a funny individual. And there's a part of how I can tell you guys, but I can't talk about on a public format that really still hurts him in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could share it, but I'm asked not to because is deemed as something, it's not important to him right now, but it does bother him, you know, in a bigger scheme of things. But you know, the dude wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Yeah, he does.
He's all about being the best he can possibly be. And let's face it, you know, we on the outside looking in, we chastise, we critique these GMs for what they do or don't do, but it is a difficult job. We talk about coaching and owning a team, but being the general manager of a team, when you're basically responsible for the personnel that is brought in to make your product better, is in a lot of ways, it's an enviable job because of the position and the money you could make, but it's an unenviable position because there's much failure as there is success. And when you think about it, when a success failure ratio is like borderlining 50-50, how many executives in any business keep a job? Not many.
Great point. And look, it's no matter which of the 32 teams, but especially in Philly.
Absolutely.
The microscope is always on guys like Howie. What I will say about Howie, he's from the point where he first came into being, you know, the second coming, to where he is now, is altogether different. Altogether different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Yeah.
If you're not advancing, you're falling down. And he's definitely advancing, understanding. You know, I can remember when we talked to him the last time we talked to him on the show. The worst day, and he's said this to me before, the worst time of his career is always after camp, you know, when he's got to cut people. He hates cutting people. And, you know, that just goes to show the human side to it. I've seen some, you know, GMs that just didn't care, you know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, I like the fact that it hurts him to cut people. You know, I mean, this is a major point in these guys' lives. This is a lifelong dream that they may not be able to come back from. You know what I mean?
Well said.
While we're sitting here doing the show, I'm going back and forth talking trash with my boy Rick Burkholder, who's the head trainer for Kansas City. And I can't repeat a lot of stuff we've been talking about, but one aspect of it, he says, you know, and I said, you know what? Okay, I agree. He said, people have doubted us since March. Here we are in a reloading year with 16 wins, 5 straight home AFC title games, 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. And I said, you're right.
Hard to argue. Hard to argue that.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's all I can say. So
much respect. I'll give you a Rick story real quick, and you guys have a million of them, I'm sure. But I was doing a remote for WIP at Eagles camp years ago. It was myself and Glenn McDowell, who we've had on the show, and our setup was not great. Like, we didn't have much coverage. It was a baking hot kind of day at Lehigh. Okay, like one of those just scorchers in you know, like late June, early August, just steaming, and like it was scary because like players were going down or whatever. And he was busy, but he comes over to us and he's got 2 cups and he's got this like slushy, salty kind of drink that he provides to the players. He saw us kind of dying over there and nobody, you know, doing anything to really give us a hand. And he gave us those drinks. Like it was just totally unnecessary, but cool.
Yeah.
And that tells you a little bit about him and what kind of person he is. So
absolutely.
You know, anyway. All right, let's get a quickie in. We'll come back NFL news. We'll dig back into the Brady retirement, the coaching moves, Matt Rule sort of still in the NFL news a little bit, who may end up where, Vic Fangio, Frank Reich, a lot to dive into, and a little turf talk as well. We'll do all those kind of things when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Barrett Brooks, Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis hanging out with you on this Wednesday. All right, let's talk about Razor technology because cybersecurity is paramount. Protecting data is a security imperative for businesses of all sizes. Choose a partner like Razor Technology with expertise in the latest threats and proactive tools to lock down every endpoint with a zero trust approach that makes certain only authorized users can gain access to your systems. Razor Technology delivers enterprise-wide insight into every component of a security plan across identity, devices, information, apps, and infrastructure with threat-prioritized recommendations. We design, deploy, manage, and monitor security solutions that enable modern business to safely communicate, collaborate, and thrive in the modern marketplace. Whether that's working in person or remotely, on internal infrastructure or in the cloud, and in every possible hybrid arrangement. Choose Razor technology to protect your digital assets, establish an organization-wide security posture, enforce safe practices for identity and access management, and secure hybrid and remote workforces. Call Razor Technology today at 866-797-3282, 866-797-3282, or visit them online at razor-tech.com. That's razor-tech.com.